Hello, and welcome to our case webinar series, where we dive further into one of our case studies. My name is Mike Peterson, and I'm the partner manager at Umbraco and responsible for our UK market. In this webinar, together with our Gold partner Cantarus and their customer BigHand, we'll look at the latest Umbraco project together. In the next 30 minutes, we'll go through the case to tell you more about how they took an existing Umbraco website and upgraded it to the latest version with some fantastic results to show. We will hear more about what were the thoughts before the project started and what were the challenges. We will look into the key elements of the solution, and finally, what were the learnings and wins from this project. We hope to inspire others, and with me today to present, I've invited Rebecca Doran and Mike Condell from Cantarus and Danae Fisher from BigHand. Mike, are you there?
I am indeed, Mike. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. As Mike said, we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into one of our customers, BigHand, and the journey that they've been on with Umbraco since partnering with us. So I'll start with a couple of introductions. My name's Mike Condell, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer and one of the directors of Cantarus, and also the Relationship Manager for the BigHand account. Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Doran. I'm the Head of Product Delivery at Cantarus, and I managed the BigHand project for the first 2 years of our engagement with them. Danae?
Hi everyone, I'm Danae. I'm the Digital Marketing Manager at BigHand. So I work alongside Mike and Rebecca and the rest of the Cantarus team, delivering our website content and working up projects that align with our business objectives.
Thanks, Danae. So in terms of just a quick summary of who we are at Cantarus, we're a full service digital agency based in Manchester in the UK. So we're a top 10 Manchester independent agency. We have a number of customers around the world, primarily in the UK. We also have a London team and presence. So we do multidisciplinary service offering across web, design, UX, branding, and work with around about 100 customers on various digital transformation projects, from CMS implementations through to data projects and mobile app implementations. We're a long-term Umbraco Gold partner, so been part of that ecosystem for a good number of years now, and have delivered tens of projects on the platform, from sort of earlier 7 versions right through to sort of nine implementations that we're doing now. So that's us. I shall hand over to Danae just to cover a little bit about BigHand.
All right, thank you, Mike. So BigHand is a software technology business, and we'll look at why that's important in this case study. But basically, we needed a platform and a website that would give the same feeling of security that we want to give to our clients when using our software. So that was one of the big reasons why we chose Umbraco. We produce productivity and profitability tools for law firms. We're a global company, so our largest office is in London, but you can see I don't have a London accent. I'm based in California, and we have staff all over the world with 3,600 clients worldwide and over 350 employees.
Thanks, Danae. In terms of Cantarus and BigHand's partnership, we've been partners since the beginning of 2020. So BigHand we're working with another company prior to sort of engaging with ourselves. So they already had an Umbraco implementation, but there were a number of things that weren't quite working for them. So we proposed an under the bonnet look at how Umbraco had been implemented, and put forward a number of recommendations. And today we'll talk about some of the initial issues that we faced, how we look to resolve those, and some of the results that we managed to execute. So it's very much a multidisciplinary service offering, right through from consultancy, design, implementation, and ongoing sort of data driven monitoring and continuous improvement that we do with BigHand in those over those 2 years that we've been partnered together. And we'll talk about some of those projects and improvements over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. But central to it was the ability to make data driven collaborative decisions that will ultimately improve the performance of the website and ultimately aim to improve the performance of our customer BigHand. So that's the introductions covered. As Mike said at the top of the at the top of the webinar, we want to talk about those initial issues that we faced as part of the review that we did, the key focus areas, some of the wins, what we might do differently if we were to engage right now, in hindsight, and also what we're planning to do in the future to continue delivering those improvements of the site. So, I mean, ultimately, BigHand, when they came to us, they didn't have the best impression of Umbraco. There was a number of issues that they were having when we took the site on. Given our knowledge and experience of Umbraco as a leading content management system, we knew that the issues were likely down to the implementation and not the platform itself. So we embarked on a full review of their Umbraco implementation with a view to taking that sort of perception around across the board. So one of the first things that we did, if I could just have the next one, thank you, Rebecca, was sort of take a look at how the site was performing. So actually, when we took the site over, BigHand editors weren't able to make changes themselves without the confidence that it wasn't going to take the site down. So even simple edits were a challenge. So we knew that there was fundamentally an issue with the structure of the site and its performance. So we replatformed the hosting architecture. So we brought in multiple web servers and implemented a load balanced environment. So the site was running on a sort of a single server when we took it over, on-premise single server, and the performance was suboptimal. So we brought in a much more resilient server infrastructure, leveraged Umbraco's ability to load balance across different webheads, and from there the site performed much better. We also undertook an Umbraco version upgrade. So they were previously running an early version of 8. So we took it very much up to the latest and greatest version, and that did improve the stability significantly. One of the quick wins that we tend to implement for most of our customers, regardless actually of CMS, but particularly works well with our sort of configuration for Umbraco, is the implementation of Cloudflare. Cloudflare, for those of you that might not be aware of it, is a global content delivery network. So it has a number of features and very low cost provides significant performance improvements. So you can turn on things like lazy loading of images, minification and optimization of how the JavaScript and the CSS is delivered, and a number of security benefits as well. So it'll cut out denial of service attacks. It has a web application firewall, so highly configurable, highly performant, and given BigHand is a global business, it also allows images and CSS and JavaScript to be cached around the world in local data centers and really serve up content to visitors regardless of where they're located in the world. We also implemented a number of security headers just to tighten up the security of the site. Previously, there had been no sort of view of the Umbraco health check tool. So you can see on the right of this slide, we always encourage the use of this to check and correct any issues with the Umbraco installation. So it was a hugely helpful tool, and we use that to really drive the infrastructure and security of the site on. I shall hand over to Danae just to talk about the editing experience.
All right. So as Mike went through, the biggest task for us in the beginning on this joint project was to clear up any technical issues and get the site to a really safe place, have no downtime. But after that was sort of out of the way, it really became about delivering a better experience, both for our end user, but also before that could happen, our editors. So what we did is moved into a place where everything was really easy to use. One of the things that we were doing that really wasn't working before was that since it was built for more like a developer than an editor, we felt safe as copying pages and then changing out the information. Obviously, that's a hugely risky thing because it means that we're leaving content in potentially that's from a previous page or overriding things. We were really locked into all of our page styles and things like that. And what we weren't able to do was be creative and focus on what our role is, which is to be marketers and to think about our audience and how we can best serve them. We were actually kind of thinking about things in terms of, well, what does our platform offer and what are we able to do under these limitations? Or have we built in enough time to connect with our web team and see if they can build us these pages? The time and the cost for that is just not realistic for a company that's like BigHand, where we want to put out content at a high frequency and a high quality. So that was one of the next things that we looked at, was improving this editing experience. I think the next slide, yeah, Rebecca can tell us how we did that.
Great. Yeah, so one of the other issues we noticed, as Mike said, we did that kind of initial review at the site, is that there was a lot of there's issues with the site due to the fact that it wasn't leveraging actually the Umbraco way of doing things. So a lot of things had been done kind of just developed as if there wasn't an Umbraco system that could already do it. So one of these was kind of image cropping. So there's a very powerful image cropping tool in Umbraco that allows you to serve the correct size images to the correct places and without having to render those with CSS. So we looked to rectify that. There was a lot of hard-coded links across the site. If you made any changes to pages or images, you would then have to go through your through your site and make a lot of development changes to make sure everything's still linked together, which wasn't ideal as well. The site search was also quite inefficient. It wasn't indexing anything. It was just kind of going through every single page every time to try and find something. So that was quite slow. The BigHand team couldn't also add in any manual redirects. So if they removed any pages or they wanted to link from one page to another, that wasn't possible, which is obviously possible within Umbraco. And finally, the model builder as well. So from more of a development perspective, the model builder wasn't being used, which meant that it was making manual alias references to various content and property types. So if anyone actually changed any of those, the website would fail at runtime, and you'd be kind of scrambling to figure out what had gone wrong. And it was just due to that alias change. But with using kind of the standard model builder of Umbraco, we were able to make the development a lot less error prone and a lot more stable. So we kind of went from there. So kind of the next thing we're just going to look at is the key focus areas. So we've mentioned what kind of issues we noted, and now we're kind of going to look at the areas that we actually initially focused on. So the first of these is kind of a content refresh. This very much links into what Danae was saying before. BigHand had a very large number of content blocks that we used across the site. Not every content block was used. Some of them have been deprecated but not removed by the development team. So there's a lot of duplication. We noted that if a new block needed to be created to say add an extra button type or something to it, that block was copied and then that was added to it. So there was two versions of one block. So you had to find the block with 2 buttons rather than the block with 3 buttons, whereas that could have been done developmentally. So kind of one of our biggest things is throughout our kind of 3-year engagement is going through the site, highlighting all of these sections where BigHand weren't necessarily happy with the content experience for their users or the editing experience, and slowly replacing them to a smaller cohesive set of content blocks. And then following on again from what Danae was saying earlier, was as well these content templates. The content team were copying things, which would then could potentially lead to content being left in. So instead we used they were called blueprints, now called content templates, which allowed the content team to quickly create new content, which was consistent And with the BigHand brand, everything was in the same place. If you're looking at a case study, you could recognize it's a case study. And it just allowed for a lot more content being created more quickly. I'm just going to slightly swap the order of these slides because I think I meant to, because I think the end user experience makes more sense for you to pick up next, Danae, and I'll nip back to performance.
Yeah, sounds good. I was just gonna add to it with the content templates. One of the things that we did is we looked at what we weren't doing as well with SEO. So best practices and things that having an image and naming things right, and maybe linking up to, if it's a case study, we want to have a module at the bottom that points back into, okay, well, what product are we talking about? Things like that we were doing a little bit ad hoc. The editor of the page was doing, we locked in as part of that content template project. And so what that did for us was it allowed anyone on our team with very little experience using a website background, maybe zero experience at all, be able to go into a page, populate everything, and know that we were delivering kind of what we view as the best version of a page. So that was huge for us because it allowed our team to scale and allowed more people to become editors. Other things that we did on the site, like Rebecca mentioned and pictured on the side here, these smart filters were something that we implemented so that we could get more value out of our existing content. So a lot of times when we think about SEO or content or the role of the marketing manager on a website, it would be to maybe create more or create better. We realized we actually had amazing content and it was being underutilized because people were not able to find it well. So what we did is also part of that content template, we added different tags and filters to our content so that people could come in and the end user on the website could say, I want to look at this type of media. I want to have it be focused on this product. And they could set these filters up and narrow down the view. We had years worth of content that we swept through, brought up to date in the new template, and then our team internally and also our prospects online are able to narrow down their focus and see exactly what they want to see. So that was huge for us. We also did a UX design refresh so that people could navigate content better, engage with a homepage better. We also added the product finder module so that people could quickly find what they wanted. And we improved some of the connection between pages. So again, like I mentioned, if you're reading a case study, there's a module now that points you back to the product that it's talking about. So that was huge for us. A lot of little things that we should have always been doing in Umbraco were implemented, and now they're just the standard for everything that we create going forward.
Great, thanks, Danae. So I'll just nip back to that slide, which just brings in those resource filters. One of the kind of the key focus areas on the development side was to make sure we were leveraging those features I spoke about before. So using the Umbraco examine search to ensure that the data was being put into a cache and in the index and was allowed to be searchable, along with those kind of the filters, and also brought fuzzy search into it as well, which allowed for a much better experience for users finding elements. We also brought in the image cropping, as I mentioned before, which was also improving the page speed because we were allowed to bring in those images at the correct size with the correct focal point. So images were being utilized in a better way. And then finally, just kind of increasing the speed through adding in minification to JavaScript and CSS files, which again increased the page speed, and bringing in a new CI/CD process, which allowed us to do deploys and do code analysis as well, which gave us a higher confidence in the code that was being deployed to the site as well. I'll just hand over to Danae for our last slide in this section.
Yeah, I will jump into this, but I wanted to layer in on something that you were saying, Rebecca, and something I like about our partnership is that you guys know a lot of acronyms that just flew at us right now. I don't know what those meant, but I know that on our end, we're able to upload a single version of an image and then it gets cropped down to the right size. And previously we had a single image that we then maybe made 10 versions of, and our team, it increases the time that it takes us to build things. So that's so much of what we've done in this partnership, is look at what's taking you too long, what could be done smarter, what could we do better. And then in terms of how that really played out, one of the things that we look at, and that we'll look at here when we talk about data, is what did that do for us? So I'll get into this project, but basically those changes that we made on the website increased the visits, the time on site, the pages viewed, and the inbound inquiries. So all of those are really huge metrics that we're obviously watching. I think the next thing that we did with Cantarus is, after seeing what a big deal all of this did, is we really got kind of addicted to data. And I think that that's typical of BigHand. We really want to know how people are engaging and how we can improve. And I think data is that thing that gives you that direction. So what we did is we partnered with Cantarus and said, we want an easy view of some of these insights so that we can watch them and make sure that they're moving in the direction that we want. So we've created a really deep dive report that I could look at from a high level and from an SEO perspective and say, is this working? Is it not? We don't like to get attached to a method. We'd rather really be realistic about things and say, if it's working, great. If it's not, let's change it. Either way, it's great information, right? The next thing that I wanted to do with that project that Cantarus really helped with was that I wanted data to be more actionable for the rest of our team, who's maybe not as familiar with looking at these reports and reading data and adjusting properly. And so that's a huge thing that we did, is we made kind of micro versions of those reports for our field and content teams so that they could do things. For example, if our field team gave an asset to a partner, they could see, okay, well, which of the partners that we sent this to drove the most traffic to it? Should we maybe increase what we're spending with them? Should we make another partnership that's similar? Things like that, where a little bit of data can create a huge level of action on their end. Same with our content team. They were able to see which of their content was delivering best, was having the most reads, the most shares, things like that. So that's been huge for our team. And I think one of, outside of the site, one of the biggest things that we've done to help action smart change across our entire department.
Thanks, Danae. I think it might be back to me. So yeah, in terms of some of the project wins, and we talked about some of the things that we've managed to do, but actually, metrics wise, what did we manage to achieve through this work? So website performance and metrics such as Lighthouse scores now have a significant impact on search rankings. So I think a research paper from last year suggests that a 2-second delay in load times of websites can result in abandonment rates of up to 87%. So the site, when we took it over, we used GT metrics, pulls together grades across sort of Google and YSlow and the like. So the grades were at sort of an F level, and there was significant improvement, room for improvement of those. So we placed a lot of focus on optimizing Umbraco so that it ran quickly. And as you can see from the grades at the bottom there, the sort of improvements that were generated through everything that we talked about here. So load balancing, implementing Cloudflare, sorting out the page structure and the UX, minifying the JavaScript and the CSS, just a load of a number of small optimizations across the site resulted in the significant improvements you can see here. And we addressed all of those issues that were flagged in the Umbraco health check, including sort of server response headers, making sure SMTP was correctly set up. So we monitor this on an ongoing basis now and make sure that we're still achieving those A grades and that we don't have any errors creep into the health check. Just have the next slide, please, Becky. So yeah, and also one of the things that we know that the complexity and risk in any development is generally in the stuff that you write yourself. So a lot of BigHand's code was fully bespoke and it wasn't leveraging the power of Umbraco and its community. So there's a huge array of packages available for Umbraco that that mean you don't have to do it yourself. Someone's already gone through the process of doing that and doing it to a high level. So we've stripped out wherever possible any sort of bespoke elements that could be, done more cleverly, sort of without having to sort of reinvent the wheel. So packages like the find and replace, redirect modules, various others across the board. So really making use of Umbraco's community to power the site. I think Danae was going to just finish off in terms of the improved editing and user experience that we've managed to achieve.
Yeah, I will. I think we've covered it, and I want to make sure we have time at the toward the end when we talk about what we do differently, because I think that's what I think is really fun on these sessions. But basically, what we covered before, we wanted to improve the editing experience. We did a lot of things that make it so that our team isn't manually entering things. Things are chosen dynamically, so related content is dynamically served based on the different filters that we've put in. All pages are made from templates. They're quick and easy to edit. We don't copy and overwrite anything. Modules can be moved around easily within pages, which is something that we weren't able to do as easily before. And we even have areas of the website that non-marketing teams have restricted access to, so that, for example, our HR team could come on and edit a small portion of the website safely with no background on using any type of CMS. In terms of the end user, obviously that's something that we don't want to forget, and that's really why the editing experience is important, because it's driving the ability for us to create better content for the end user. But our site performance is obviously up. Our content is easier to find, and we have a much better journey. So we created something that we call we just kind of look at it as a content journey more than we used to. So how is everything connected, and what are our call to actions on the site? All of those became a lot richer through our partnership with Cantarus and using the Umbraco platform. Yay, what would we do differently? Okay, so from BigHand's perspective, I think we've covered it, but we would absolutely encourage everyone to build for editors, not developers. That's allowed us to scale. It's allowed us to do a lot more in-house. We've upskilled a broader set of our team because of this. And we're able to think more creatively and really think about what does the end user want, what cool features and tech do we want to provide to them, instead of thinking in this place of, well, how do we work from what we have now? We also, everything that we build with Cantarus, they know this, I don't even need to say this anymore, but it's how is this future-proofed, and how will this work later if we want to use this outside of this page, but for something else? Should we also build in a button? Even though I don't need a button now, should that be part of the module, because later I might want it for something else? So that's always how we approach things, is how can we use it later? And also, if we grow or add products or acquire another business, which is a very real thing for us at BigHand, how's that going to impact the site? How's this module going to serve that? And all of those types of questions. So think about where you can use it, how you can use it, and how it can grow. I really want, with our partnership with Cantarus, for them to always be focused on the next new great thing and how to make our site amazing, not how to build pages for us. We really want to take on that page building experience, so that in our meetings we're focused on something much bigger picture and delivering something really, really great. And then yeah, I think that's it, just emphasizing the user experience from the start. So I think that goes straight into you, Rebecca.
Great, thanks, Danae. With the kind of engagement we had with BigHand, we just kind of, as Mike said, took on the site from another team of developers. So there may have been quite a few things we would have done differently if we would have engaged with them from the very start. But one of the biggest things in the way we engaged would probably be just to do some more extensive testing of Umbraco in the more complex infrastructure environments. We started using Umbraco 8.000, so it's a very early release. And we then moved the site straight into a load balanced environment so a load balance web file configuration, and it did have some issues with the content cache and the examine indexes, which we soon found were fixed as soon as we upgraded it to the next version of Umbraco. As we probably would have just done a little bit more research into that before swapping the environments. And I think I'm handing over to Mike, am I? Danae, just to talk about the future, kind of what we're looking to do in our ongoing partnership. So I'll quickly hand over to Danae. Unless Mike, are we all right? We're on 30 minutes. Yes, we're fine. Go on, Danae.
All right, I'll keep it quick. Some of the things that we've already been looking at, but that we'll look at more and we'll challenge ourselves with the next year is role-based journeys and personalized content, continuing to improve the UX, UI, and also accessibility based on data. Everything that we do now is going to be based on data. An increased focus on SEO-driven content and our keyword strategy. So we'll kind of layer in some tools for that. And like I mentioned, getting more value out of existing content. So how do we take what we already have and get more out of it by being smarter and having more connections between things? Finally, a continued focus on using data and Umbraco tools to deliver a great experience, both for our clients and prospects. So one of the big things that we look at is how is the website delivering for our internal team? Are they able to find what they need to bring a sale further along, but also someone completely new to BigHand, are they able to come on the site and find what they need and get a grasp of who we are and all that good stuff? So that's a big target for us always, but definitely in the coming year.
Thanks, Danae, and I'll just wrap up with a couple of nods to a few cool Umbraco things we want to do in the coming months. So new marketing suite, big fan of. There's a lot of amazing stuff you can do with this tool. So A/B testing, personalization, putting your personas that you define outside of Umbraco within Umbraco, and then starting to score users and put them into sort of different marketing automation tools. So something that we're looking at that's on the horizon. Big fan of that if you haven't looked at it, and also just embracing Umbraco 9 and 10 when it comes along. So we're looking at a feasibility project for going to the latest version of Umbraco, and that's just going to enable us to realize so many more benefits around performance, scalability, cross-platform capability, cost saving on infrastructure footprint, just through that sort of move to the ASP.NET Core .NET 5, or whatever you want to call it. So those are a couple of sort of cool things we just want to round off with that we're looking at. So Mike, that wraps up our content. So back over to you.
Perfect, and I always enjoy listening to the journey of a project, especially when it comes from a Go partner like you, because I can really see how you utilize the different or the close connection you have to us in order to get things like architectural advice and best practice in the pre-stage, but also knowledge around best practice packages. As you mentioned, there's a lot of packages that we can also, our team can help you guide you in the right direction. And it also takes me on to what what Danae says around making a project future-proof for growth. A lot of the trend and talks right now is around building DXPs or composable DXPs, and having Umbraco as the key component for content means that you look at packages like Marketing Suite for personalization. You can look at other parts, and you can be agile in the way you build your infrastructure and your project to be able to grow as you need and as a business. And as Danae says, maybe in a year's time you've acquired multiple companies and you're in a different position, but having the right project set up in the right way to begin with means that you can grow with it. And that's really a big strength of Umbraco, is the flexibility of being able to tailor it going forward as well. User experience is one of our key selling points. It's one of the things that Umbraco is loved for. So always enjoy to hear from editors and people using it that it is also living up to its reputation. So, so thank you very much. I don't have anything else, and thank you everyone for listening in today. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.